Yes,
Yes,
teacher.
teacher.
Okay, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning.
Good morning, teacher.
Okay, give me a second just to organize my computer. So, 30 minutes. Okay, welcome to our class. I'm happy that you're here. And before I start to the session, I would like to ask you, do you have any questions, anything that you would like to talk about the lab that the assignment that I proposed, the user story and the description of the project? Any questions, guys?
So far, not, teacher.
Okay. Again, I enforce, if you have any question, if you want to make a double check what you read, what you wrote, you can send Slack in the Slack, and I can provide some. Okay, I cannot review completely the document. I can read quickly and provide some insights or some feedbacks about what you wrote before you submit the final version. Okay. Today we will continue the talks about the project. Okay. In the last session we studied requirements. It's a very important because all the project is based on the requirement that you will see. And today we talk more about how to organize a project. Okay, how to organize and how to manage a project. Okay, and our plan today, we start the session talk about the main project frameworks. Okay, we talk about the water flow, spiral, and others. Follow, we start to study about the agile. That is the most modern. Is the 9 and 10 project that you work today. You use one agile methodology. Okay, maybe you don't use Scrum, but you use something similar than Scrum. Okay, and we study Scrum. Okay, we study Scrum. We present the main idea of the Scrum. We use a tool to support our project. Okay, and today, at the end of the session today, you are able to organize a project in Scrum and to conduct the management of the project using Scrum methodology. Okay, so I will share my screen. Again, if during the session you have any question, just interrupt me immediately and ask them. Okay. Okay. We start the unit 1.3 is the product management process, and can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. I need to stop again and reshare because some slides there are videos. Oh, I shared the wrong place. Oh my gosh. Give me a second, guys. Okay, now it's correct. Okay. You want to revisit this slide because we already talked about it in the last session. How the software development process, you follow specific steps to develop or to develop a software. The first step, you already you did one exercise about that, is the software specification or the requirement station. Okay, in the software specification, you define, you talk with the user, the customer, and try to discover not only what he wants in features, okay, what is the functionality that he wants, but also you want to identify uh, his expectation, okay, the things that he didn't talk or didn't say, however he expect that the software provide. Something like, you don't need to write this requirement because all the user wants that the UI or the interface is easy to use. Okay. All the user wants that your password is strong. Okay. It's an expectation. There are cases that the user said this feature. Oh, I want that the password that the user is using my system is strong. In some cases, a function required. Another case, the user does not talk, did not say to us this requirement. However, they want is implicit, okay? Is a implicit requirement or expectation requirement, okay? After you have the specification of the software, you start to design. What is the design? You start to see how you solve the problem. Okay, you have the requirements that describe what you need to do. In the software design, you start to design or define what the way that you perform or the way that you create the software that solve the problems that the user presented in the software station, the requirement station. Okay, and you start to implement. You transform the design, the architecture, and code, okay, in products. The third step is, okay, you have the software done. You need to validate the software. What means validation? Validation is you go to the user and say, okay, what I did is exactly what you do, what you want. Oh, yes or not, okay? You validate the software. And the last step is the software evolution. The software is a live entity, okay? The software is not you finish a software, turn over and go out, okay? No. All the software you need to provide some support after the development, okay? And in a lot of cases, the user the customer when start to use your software, identify situation that is not so clear, okay? For example, this functionality here is not exactly what I want. I need some adjust, okay? Or things have new idea. Oh, and now I have this software. It solves a lot of problem, but I can improve my performance if you change these things. It's the software evolution. Your software increase functionality, fix problems, and evolve in the time. Okay. In a project, the real project, you follow these 4 steps. Okay. But the main problem and the reason that you define, that you use methodology is because a lot of parts of the code that you produce, you lost. This research, this company did a research, a survey with 280,000 software projects in West and discovered these things. 45% of the code that you produce never being used. Okay, the user don't use. It's in the requirement, but the user does not use and no in any time. 16 sometimes is functionality that they use sometimes use. 19 is hard, and 20% of the software is the features that the user really needs, okay? You can increase, put, for example, 20 and 90, or you can, okay, consider the 3 ones. However, 45%, around half of your effort is trash, okay? It's complete trash. It's a big problem because, for example, if you hire, you contract a company to develop a system to you, around 50% you pay for nothing. Okay, it's the situation. Around 64% code waste you pay for trash, the things that you never use, and it's the reason to use process to manage a project, okay? To avoid to decrease the waste, okay? To decrease the time. Remember the impossible projects. You have three things that make the project impossible. Or you don't have the time, you don't have the research, or you don't have the money, okay? If you understand, if you understood the three issues, and you know that around 50% of your effort is trash, maybe you can solve the three problems using a process and avoid to, for example, elicit wrong requirements, okay? To the beginning of the computer science or the software development to now, you have a big evolution in the process of managed, okay, the managed process. Because during the time, the people start to think in one model to manage the project and start to analyze the problems of this model and identify problems and try to solve this problem. And all the time, the way what the research analyze is, okay, think the three issues: time, money, and people. How you can improve these things, okay? The oldest model is the water flow, okay? The water flow follows the industry pipeline, okay? It's the like, for example, Iot Taylor organized the pipeline of production of products in the industry, okay? The software, most of the time, follow the industry model, okay? The new models like the Agile use the lean that is from Japanese industry, okay? But again, the water flow model. The water flow model, as the name said, is the one of the first model to develop things. You follow strict steps, step by step, and at the end of the process, you have the final product. You start to require definition, okay? You go to the user and elicit the requirements and write the report and go back to the user and say, okay, it's what you want to do that I do. It's exactly what you want, and return. No, there is this change. Okay, you go to the office again, work again the requirements, the definition, return to the user and ask again. Okay, now it's correct? Yes, it's correct. You spend around 2 or 3 months to elicit the requirements. Only after you finalize this step, you start to system and software design. And the system and software design, again, you have the requirement, you start to design the software, okay? You start to design the things that you think that you understood about the requirements. Follow, you start the implementation and the unit test, okay? You work in the integration and the system test and the acceptance test. Only in this phase, okay, only in this phase, you return to the user and show and ask them, okay, remember the thing that you described about the requirements? Okay, it's the software. Okay, here, it's the software. I did what you want, and the user say, oh, yes or no. Okay. A question for you. What is the problem of this approach? What is the problem about this approach? Who can answer? Come on, guys. Nobody. What's the problem of this approach here? Okay. The problem of this approach is you only receive a feedback about your work here. I don't believe. I don't know why it happens in my Zoom. Give me a second. I use the PowerPoint. Okay. The problem is you only receive a return here. You work, for example, for a year in the requirement that you receive, and only validate the requirements at the end. Because the reason people study the software and generate this graph, the cost of change. Things in the approach that in the last approach, this approach here. You receive the feedback here. You need to change your software here. Okay, you return to the specification again, design, implementation, and back to the validation again. When this graph here, the variable graph, show these things. If you found a problem in the requirements, the cost is very low. If you found the problems in analysis, increase. If you found the problem in the production, the cost is much more higher because you already implemented, you're using the software. Okay, maybe you cannot change completely the architecture. You need to, because it's so expensive, you have a lot of interdependence between the software and the environment and the business. Okay, so the research, the software researchers start to analyze how to detect change or how to implement change in the initial phase. Okay, what you'll see here is the new methodology try to implement one way to develop a system that the focus is to find changes in the previous phase. The first one is the incremental model. In the incremental model, it's like a water flow. However, you implement a lot of water flow. Okay, you define the requirements, but not maybe most of the time you define the requirement for the all projects, but you implement small parts of the system and validate in small time. It's like, okay, in the first incremental, you have the requirements and say, okay, I have 10 requirements. In the first increment, I will implement only the 2 first requirements. Okay, and you're planning how you implement, modeling, building, deployment, and test and validation. And you validate the first increment. Okay, and if everything's good, you go to the second. But if you have a problem, you spend only a few amounts of time. Okay, it's a way to try to do this one. The difference is this cost here is in the water flow process. What you do here, you create increment, very short increment, then you define early the problems. Okay, if you don't have a problem, you go to the second one increment. In the second one, okay, and now I will work in this requirement 3 and 4, and you perform our phase. And you develop until the end of the project, follow this step by step. Another model is the Bow-Small spiral model. It's like an incremental model, however, you work in the spiral. Again, you increase the you increase the things that you, for example, I believe I have here. Give me a second. Okay, give me a second. I will show one thing. Yes. I try to find in English. Okay. It's a type of incremental model, okay? Use a very, it's this methodology, rational uniform process, is very common, very used in the 1980s, okay? You model the business, you generate requirements, analyze, design, implementation, testing, implementation. Use this model here, how it works. In the beginning, in the initialization of the project, we implement only the model, business model, and the requirements. In the second phase, the first and the second phase, you work hard in the business model and requirements, and we start to analyze, implement, and testing. And you decrease the business model and the requirements in the C1, C2, and C3, okay? And in the last phase, you put focus in testing implementation, okay? This type of model is very good because in the beginning, you don't have information, no information about the project, and you put focus in the to acquire this information. However, in the same time, you create software and validate this software. However, you spend much more time to implementation, validation in the last phase. This process is much better than the water flow. However, it has the same problem of the water flow. Most of your validations is in the end, at the end, okay? It is the reason that appears the agile model. The agile model is completely different. The paradigm is completely different. Okay. In the agile model, the focus is to produce done software all the times. Okay. You didn't you perform all the phase. However, the focus is in the small amount of time, in the small period, you produce all the times useful software or done software. Okay. I will try to explain. Again, Agile was from the Lean methodology. Is the methodology applied in the Japanese industry, in the Honda, Toshiba, and other industries. Okay. In this methodology, the focus is not exactly in the process. The focus is in the people. You need to create an environment that you're powerful. The people are so important. It's the main focus of the development. And the other thing that's important is the client, the business is much more important than to document things. All the things you need to, your language to state requirements like the user store. The focus is not the software, is in the business. One thing that all of the Agile has is, okay, in the beginning of this development, I don't know nothing about the domain. I don't know exactly the requirements. And either the user, The customer does not know exactly what you want. He has an initial idea about what you want, but it's not productive to talk about in detail, because when you start to show what you're doing, maybe he understands exactly what you want. It's one idea. You will develop a web commerce system. Anyone thinks about one, like Amazon and others. Okay, it's a very common that the user, the customer, has, for example, the website from, I don't know, Google, Amazon as a reference. And when you try to explain what you want, he tries to explain exactly what he knows about the world, okay, about the problem. However, when you start to develop the things, okay, you start to design the things, the user is confronted with the problem, and maybe the Amazon is not the best solution. Maybe he needs to rethink what he think about the problem and find a new solution. If you have a very strict block to requirements like you have in the water flow, in the incremental and the spiral, you spend a lot of money. If you have a very big phase to requirement station, when you start to design and to receive the feedback, you all the time you need to check, okay, I need to back to requirements. I leave the requirements in the station. It's the main problem of the ROP. The main problem that happens to ROP is a very amazing methodology. Describe a lot of process, and this is very focused in the business. However, it has a big problem. You spend a lot of time to produce reports and to produce reports and models, and you don't have time to produce software. There are a case that changed how the people develop system. Okay, Agile is not so new, but there are one event that changed the world. Okay, until 90 years, all the projects, 80% of the project follow the ROP methodology. Okay, until you have 11. Sorry, 11. Is September 11 in the US, when you have the attack to the Twin Towers. The FBI contracted a company to develop a system to support to identify risk in this type of risk. Okay, I cannot remember the name of this software. And the FBI pay millions of dollars to a company to develop the system to it. After 1 year, the FBI spent much more than $10 million and received only reports. One guy that worked in the acquisition in the FBI had to have a course about the new methodologies, agile methodologies, in particular about the Scrum, and said, okay, if you give me a percentage of this money and provide me 8 months, a year, I developed a software in the Scrum methodology. And it's in the first successful case about the use of the Agile in the big projects. And the system was developed in 1 year using the Agile methodology. After this event, the companies that has, okay, the Agile is very beautiful, but it's not work. Stop to talk about it and start to use Agile in all the projects, okay? Today, it's very hard to find a project that don't use Agile, in a sense, like Scrum, or part of Agile, or a little change or adaptation of the agile. Okay. But what is agile? Agile first, individuals and interaction over process and tools. In the RP, when you define to use RP, you need to pay a tool, a very expensive tool, to support the process. And you need to follow the process, follow. Don't think, follow the process. With the Agile, you don't have a strict process. You don't have tools. You can work in the Agile with using a whiteboard and sticks only. Okay, it's the things that you need to work in the Agile. Okay, because it's more important, the individuals and interaction. It's the things that solve problems. Working software over comprehensive documentation. In the ILP, you generate a lot of documentation. And the Agile, you produce software. And the documentation, you generate the required, the essential documentation. Or in other words, you only produce the documentation that is very, very, very important. Without this documentation, you lost the information. Okay. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Things in the case of BFBI, the people that talk about the requirements is the business guys. But when you have a problem, it's not the business guys come to the meetings with the lawyers because it's a contract negotiation. In the Agile, you see all the times you talk with the user. There is user position inside the project, the customer position inside the project. And the customer and the developer are committed to develop the solution. It's not only the developer responsibility. Respond to change of overflowing plan. Because you see in the Agile, you work in the small amount of time. You use a cycles, and the cycle is a very is very short. It's a very short cycle. Okay, it's not a big cycle. It's a short cycle. Okay, and it's the reason. All the times you back to the user and say, okay, what I did? What you think? Or can you explain better about this requirement here? Yes. And you talk all the time with the user. The user is inside your process. It's the thing that make the Agile react to the change. Agile use 12 principles. Satisfy the customer is the main. You work to the customer. It's not you work to the process. Welcome change. You change the things all the time. Deliver frequently, as I said, the cycle is very short. You deliver software all the time. Work together, it's very important. In RP and other process, you have the boss and you have the developers. In the Agile, there is no disposition about the boss. Okay, in the big company, you have the team leader, but the team leader is not the boss. He's a guy that has more knowledge about the technology knowledge and has like a mentoring position. Okay, trust and support. We have one slide that the Agile does not work if you are involved. You need to be committed. Okay. The customer needs to be committed with the solution. If you only involved, it's not work. Face-to-face conversation, working software. You need to develop working software. It's not, I develop part of, I have a documentation here that showed that, for example, in the Agile meetings, you don't use PowerPoint. You show software, you generate demos. Continuous attention, simplicity, self-organized teams. I will talk late, reflect and adjust. Okay, in the Agile, it's welcome to have discuss about the reflections. Adjust is normal. Oh, I'm not feel well with this approach. Okay, we'll try to change to be everybody needs to be well, okay? It's a very important. When you compare water flow and agile, okay, before I come, any question, guys, until here?
No, teacher.
When you compare waterfall and agile, I don't know if you perceive, the plane phase is biggest in the waterfall. You have a plane phase in agile, but it's not so big than the waterfall. Follow, in the waterfall, you follow a strict phase by phase. In the agile, you have design, build, test, and you replan and deploy. Design, build, test, you replan and deploy. Design, field, test, and you deploy. All the time you deploy it. This graph is much better. The box is the cheapo or the bug-free product features, okay? Is this real software, is the done software. The dice are the risks, okay, or change to fail. And the money is the technical debt. In the water flow, when you start the water flow, okay, you have risk and technical debt. During the process, you increase the risk and the technical debts. At the end, you have the deliverable or the product, but you have a big money that you need to spend and a lot of risk. Why this a lot of risk? Because you don't have any feedback, or you have few feedbacks about what you did and what the customer thinks about what you did. In the agile, no. In the agile, you have a lot of uncertainty in the beginning, but at the beginning you have the product and you have a technical debt. When you move in the process, you increase the number of deliverables, and because you increase the number of deliverables and receive the feedback, you decrease the risk. At the end, the risk is low and the technical cost is low. It's not changing the time, and you deliver the final product. My question to you, before you go to the break, why, I clear here to be, why the risk here is much more slow than here? Who can answer me? Why does the risk and the agile is slowest than the water flow?
Because you constantly try to improve your project.
I can hear well. Can you repeat, please?
Because you constantly try to improve your project.
Because you are developing.
Yeah. It's because, exactly, you reduce the risk because all the times you check if you're doing the correct thing. Okay? Any question, guys?
No.
After the break, we will talk about the Scrum. Okay? Scrum is one of the agile methodology. You have others. Okay? You have the Kanban, is a very lazy agile methodology. You have XP. XP is the first agile methodology that you implement. It's worked well in the project that you don't have strict buggers involved. Okay, like in the open source projects, the XP works very well. When you have a strict buggers, the Scrum provides more stable environment. You have others. You have the TDD is a test agile method, but TDD, you can use TDD inside the Scrum. You have the BDD is another agile methodology. You have a lot of different agile methodology. In this course, you present the Scrum. Why Scrum? First, It works well when you have a budget or a time constraint. Okay. Second thing, 8 and 10 projects in the world use Scrum. Okay. Few or use the pure Scrum or use some adaptation of the Scrum. Okay. And you see the Scrum is very easy to apply. Okay. There is no very strict. You need to learn about few things to use Scrum. Okay. It's a little more complex than XP. However, it's nothing compared, for example, the RP or other methodology that you have in the Agile. Okay. So we'll give 10 minutes. Okay, we'll stop sharing. Where's my pointer? Okay.